and now you want to be mayor of the city. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some background in case there's somebody that does not know you.
Well, I think central to who I am is the fact that when I was growing up in Cleveland, the oldest of 7, my parents never owned a home. And by the time I was 17, we lived in 21 different places, including a couple cars. When we did find rent, generally, we were one of the few, if only, families that happened to be Caucasian and an African-American community. And because of that, that has everything to do with the way I look at the world, at my politics, because my politics are grounded in the memory of people who are just trying to make ends meet, where having a roof over your head is like the biggest thing in the world. Having clothes on your back, food on the table, being able to pay your bills, having safe neighborhoods. I mean, these are all things that when I did get into politics and when I eventually got to Congress, healthcare for all, jobs for all, education for all, decent housing. I mean, all of these things are central to what I see as governments for all with the people. And that comes from where I grew up. That's where my sensibilities and sensitivities come from, in what I'll call the beloved community. So, if you start with that, it's easy to understand why my politics are different from some of my kind. And that is that, I grew up in a totally different circumstance. And it's had everything to do with the way I look at the world and the way that I pursue my work. I mean, this is why when I was elected mayor the last time, half of the top appointments went to people in the African-American community. Yes, Lou Stokes, Carl, and I worked together, and we put together a program, and it worked perfectly in terms of having African-Americans in the safety department, heading safety, personnel, community relations, human resources, economic development, service department, Director Pettis. And we worked as a team because I see the community as one. We're one. And if I am so fortunate as to be elected mayor again, the approach that I will take is one of inclusion and to make sure that the benefits of government are not just shared equally, but there needs to be some restorative economic justice in neighborhoods like Mount Pleasant, Lee Harvard, Shaker Square, which have actually been ignored because I know the whole city. I understand it, and I'm about that. I'm about moving forward in that work. So I mean, that's just a kind of an opening of a discussion.
If you are our next mayor, how will you address the disparity in infant mortality in the Black community?
Well, we have a come to Jesus moment with Cleveland Clinic, university hospitals, and even Metro Health. Part of it involves reaching out to young women, letting them know what kind of help is available. Because what happens is, and I know what happens when you're in a lower income, socially disadvantaged, socially disorganized situation. You don't reach out. People have to come to you. We have to reach out to people, reach out to young women and tell them these services are available, and the services have to be available. They have to be made available through the various hospital systems. And this isn't even a closed question. When I was chairman of a congressional investigative subcommittee, I was privy to the internal documentation of university hospitals and Cleveland Clinic, and I saw that they weren't giving a proportionate amount of care across the city. They just weren't. And I was in a position where I talked to them, but they didn't have to do anything. If I was mayor, totally different. Mayor has a lot of power with respect to these hospitals. We saw recently both hospital systems reported that there were millions of dollars that they could have spent in the community that they didn't. They owe the community money. And I'm going to see that return in terms of in two specific areas. Infant mortality is one, and the other one is testing the children for lead poisoning and coming up with health plans for each individual child who may have in fact been poisoned by lead. depending on the degree of severity. So, to me, the resources are already here in our community. The question is, how do you get them to the people? But the city has to reach out. We have to canvass. We have to go door to door. Even when the census was taken, I will guarantee you that the African American community was undercounted, guaranteed. And so you have to spend a lot of time reaching out, and I intend to do that. I intend to reach out to the women that are having these children or are pregnant. They need to know about the care that's available, and then after birth, we need to make sure that that the infant care has to be provided, and that each child is treated individually for a health care regimen that will take them from one age to another. We have to start taking care of community, and that's where I'm coming from.
What initiatives or changes to CMSD would you spearhead to improve both educational and career outcomes for our students?
Well, let's start with the fact that the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, they're not paying attention to what parents think. I'd say they don't even want to know what parents think. They're just running the school system. It's top heavy with administration or people who are not really attuned to what's happening inside the system. And one of the things that I want to do is to make sure that we restore all extracurricular activities. Children need to be inspired to be involved in arts and trades and everything you can imagine. And many of us were exposed to when we were children. They don't have that now, and the money's there. It's not like the system is rolling in money. They got a $1.2 billion budget, but it's top heavy. They're spending money administration, more money administration, less money on the children. And so I want to see more money into that classroom. I want to make sure that that those children who are falling behind get remedial help if they need it. If we are in a COVID environment and we're separated from the classroom and it's individual, we have to make sure that every child has an internet connection, that they have a computer that they can access, that they're able to, communicate, and that if someone needs to sit with them a while in the house and help them communicate so they get, familiar with the technology, that should be done. That is not hard to do. We have to make it possible for the young children who are in this internet desert. We have to start putting water in those deserts, and that water is what? The water is a good internet connection. It's a computer, and it's someone showing you how to use it. Let's face it, all of us on this call at one point, we're looking at a computer. We're going, huh? We're looking at the internet. We're going, what? And you become familiar with it, and then all of a sudden it's like second nature, and that's how you communicate. Well, the children in some areas, the children need that help. And, we can't control everything, but we can sure do a lot in making sure that children who are isolated are given a chance to learn. And that also means, that it's going to mean that there has to be home visits to make sure that the children have an environment where they can learn it and are supported. Not all children do. Some are living in real tough circumstances. And we have to try to help those children do the best they can and involve the adults who are in there in the progress of that child. And that's going to, we're talking about a community right now where 20% of Clevelanders are living on $10,000 or less. And a third of the city is living at or below the poverty level, and half of the children are at or below the poverty, which means their parents are included in that 1/3 who is poor. We have so much work to do in making sure that people, that the parents themselves are getting help. It's not, it's a child, but sometimes you have to make sure the parents get some help so they can help the child. We have to look at this as one Cleveland family. We have our children, we have the parents and others who are caring for the children. We have to take a comprehensive approach. And we're going to have to intervene wherever there's great violence. I mean, we're all reading stories every day about people just walking along the street, getting gunned down, driving their car, getting gunned down. This is happening everywhere. Bishop Ward, just where we met a couple days ago, there's some young man was gunned down on the street there. I mean, that's happened. I know about what happened in a parking lot, a few across from the community center a few months ago where, some people were killed, and this is happening all over now. And we've got to do something about the violence. And, which is one of the reasons why I want to create a cabinet level civic peace department where we actually get right into the neighborhoods to find out what's happening and find, with the respect to the violence, to find out what can we do to stop it from percolating up, and to see how we can help people avoid it, just and help young people avoid getting locked into some of these gangs, because if they don't have any extracurricular activities in the school, the gangs become the extracurricular activities. And that's happening, and that can happen to any of us when we're growing up. We have nothing else to do. These gangs come along, we can get involved, and it can be bad news. And today the gangs every one of the gangs has guns. I mean, I've heard reports that sometimes 80% of the young people out there are strapped. And what does that mean? It means that they're not all looking to shoot somebody, but they're afraid of getting shot. And if they're shot, they're going to fire back, and innocent people are going to get help. This is like the Wild West. And yet, who's doing anything about it? I mean, we pretend like, well, that's the way it is. No, it is not. We need to intervene, and we need to intervene in a most broad, comprehensive way, involving the community in the discussion, but also real leadership, not one that says, well, it is what it is. No, we're here to make a difference. As long as we're here and we want to be a leader in the city, we must show people that there is a way out of this chaos and out of this violence. And it's not the way we're meant to live. It's not what we were made for. And unless we believe there's some higher purpose in our existence, we're out of luck here. And so I want to see what I can do to work with you and others to help lift this community up, and to help bring the potential out of every child that is there. And you pay some attention to a child, we all are going to be surprised, because every one of us knows if we did not have help in our own life at some critical time, we could have fallen through the cracks. And oh, do I realize that in my own life? And so I feel a special commitment here to the community, to use whatever I have, which I've been very gifted at this point, to pour it back and give back and say, okay, come on, let's lift everybody up.
It's 2021. What is your plan to address lead safety amongst Cleveland residents?
Every child must be tested to begin with, because there's 33,000 children in the Cleveland schools. There's some other ones that are in charter and private schools. We need to test every youngster under the age of 18. Everybody who's in school needs to be tested. That's number one. There is no question in my mind that there is a link between certain behavioral disorders, it's already proven, and lead poisoning. I mean, if we were to go into some of the prisons right now and test the inmates, we'll find a high degree of lead poisoning. That's just what happens. And nobody gave, a care about it until Clash and other groups, Black on Black crime, started to organize and say, hey, what about these children? And it is a fact. So you test the child. Then, depending on the severity, you have to have an assessment. What is the plan for each child to try to, is it chelation? What kind of medical treatment can be given to help get that lead out of the child's system? Because not just, there's money that can be spent. And it's just that the system don't want to spend the money. Well, no, the money must be spent. And there again, you go back to the Cleveland hospitals, and we'll reach out to them and we'll get them involved in a program. So that's one level. Now the level, what about where the environment where the children are living, where the houses are loaded with lead paint? Each house has to be assessed. Is the situation of removing the lead paint is going to be more costly to remove it than it would be to build some more housing? I mean, I don't care with building, if we have to 10, 20,000 new units of housing, but we need to find out, can these homes, can any of the homes be saved? The next level is, what about the lead pipes? You know, there's some of the older homes have lead pipes, and we have to, that has all, we need people to look for lead pipes, and we need an evaluation, house by house. That's the only way you can do it. And where the children are living. And that's like a census type approach. You knock on every door, you do an assessment, you find out, is a child living there, what the age is, have they been exposed, what the degree of exposure, and let's face it, if a child is exposed, you have to get them out of that environment. Otherwise, what are we talking about? What does that mean? It means in some cases, children are we're going to have to help find new housing that is lead free, and that may require a new structure where the family can live. And it may mean that that old structure is going to be too expensive to remediate and may have to be torn down. Then there's the question of lead in the soil in various places. We have to check that too. We have a big task ahead of us. Look, when I think about the work that needs to be done, it can be daunting. I'm not, the more you know about this, you understand, wow, there's a lot of systems you have to put into play, but I know how to do it, but I can't do it alone. Community, it's all about community participating. And when you do that, when you reach out and get people involved, you can make anything happen. It used to be that way in Cleveland years ago, but it's kind of fallen apart, but we can put it back together. We can rebuild the civic infrastructure.
Given the historically low spend from the city to Black-owned vendors, what is your plan to invest in and support historically Black-owned businesses?
Cities, minority city, African Americans have a stake in the city, which means, whether or not you have a Fannie Lewis type law, the fact of the matter is, as mayor, when we're letting out contracts, they're just not going to be let out unless there is some measurement of community involvement, and not just in appearances, in name. Oh, I got somebody who put their name on the deal. No, we have to. This has to be done on a number of different levels. I want the Small Business Administration to join us in an effort of doing an inventory of all the businesses that are out there. We have to determine what the needs are. Needs are different, but most of the time the needs are to try to get some capital to stay in business. How many people do we know just need a little bit of a loan, they couldn't get it, and they lost their business? What does that mean? It means we have to get the bank back in the game. As long as the bank's not under pressure, they're not going to do anything. They're taking the money from whoever they can in the city, and they're taking it to other cities, other countries. It's been going on for our whole life. But when I was mayor, I was the first mayor in America to use the Community Reinvestment Act to get a savings and loan in Mount Pleasant near 131st Street to invest back in the community. I left office, the ballgame changed. We need to get private investment, we need to get public investment. The one advantage that I have over everybody who would aspire to be mayor at this time and is on the ballot is this. I can actually go to Washington because I've known Joe Biden for 50 years. He and I first ran for Congress together in 1972. That's when he went to the Senate, and I just missed getting elected to Congress. And I know, because I've spent so much time in Congress, I know the chairs and the ranking member of every single congressional committee. When I go there, I'm a familiar face. When I was in Congress for those 16 years, I was on the floor of that house all the time, putting coalitions together, Democrats, Republicans, showing a way that people can work together, building relationships with people that Democrats would just go to one side of the aisle, the Republicans go to the other. Not me, I'm back and forth all the time. And so I built relationships. And there isn't a person in power in DC that I can't go to, I don't have to see their staff. I can go right in the office. Matter of fact, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I've got something that very few people have, and that's this. This is a congressional identification card. This entitles me to the privileges of the floor of the House of Representatives. I can go right on the floor of Congress. I can talk to people about anything I want. And that gives, and that's because, and they know me. So, and anytime I've been in Washington, I introduce myself to the new members to try to keep up, but they know who I am and they know where I come from. And I want to be there to advocate for Cleveland. And I'll be in a position to do that. Because you think about it, we're one of the poorest cities in America, if not the poorest. I want to bring some things home. Washington owes us. That's the way I look at it. And I could sit down with President Biden and say, look, we've got cities, Cleveland and others, need help. If you go back to 1968, the Kerner Commission report, which talked about the riots that happened in American cities, and it concluded it's about lack of economic opportunity, lack of housing, healthcare, jobs, education, all that. The conditions are worse today than they were, 40, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. So I can deliver that message loud and clear to the president. And because I know him, he's going to pay particular attention. So I'm ready. It's not that it's just I'm ready to do the job. I know how to do the job, but I'm ready to use the unique position I'm in right now, having also been a state senator, to work government at every level for our community and to get on it immediately, not wait. But I can't do it alone. I need help.
You've got 1 minute to give us your final statement, and you can go right now.
Thank you, Bishop. I appreciate everyone listening in. And if you really want to see Cleveland uplifted in a way that you haven't seen for many a year, if you want to see this city really harness its potential with someone who has the experience that encompasses the fullness of this city, but also has a spiritual awareness. I wouldn't be here today if not for the grace of God. And I know that. I'm very humble about that. I don't fear any man, but I fear God. I don't answer to any man, but I answer to God. And I do that every moment. And so, I'd be grateful for your support. I think that together we not only establish where the power is in the community, as it should be in the community, not outside, not from people want to dump a ton of dark money into a campaign and walk away saying, we did it. We got our person elected. No, nobody owns me. I'm unbought, I'm unbossed. And I'm ready to use my integrity and the power of community and working with you to create a new possibilities, new energy, excitement. And we can do that together. This is really an opportunity for us to recreate the city of Cleveland, to harness that economic and spiritual potential and just cause Cleveland to move forward. And then people would say, wow, look at Cleveland. That's a city on the move. How'd that happen? Well, it happened because we did it. With God's help.
Congressman. God bless you. Thank you for taking this time to be with us. You'll be hearing from GPAC shortly. Have a great evening, and we're wishing you all the best in this race.
Thank you very much.
Amen.